Hi, my name's David Amston, and I just have a thought that I want to share with you today. I'm going to talk to you specifically about my favorite disciple, and that's Peter. Now, you may have more in common with Peter than you even know. Peter is this disciple that acted first and thought later. And if you're anything like me, that's exactly what your life has always felt like. You moved out and did something, and then you had to figure out how to deal with the consequences of your actions. But before I get to the scripture that I want to share with you out of Acts chapter 12, I just want to make sure you see Peter like I see Peter. And we first meet up with Peter in actually all four, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And you see a time when Peter was standing by the shores. He was actually fishing, been fishing all night. Jesus wants to get in his boat to be pushed away from the shore a little bit to be able to talk to the crowd. And if you're anything like Peter, here's how your salvation experience went. You, for all night long, or all day long, or all week long, or for years, have been fishing, trying to fill your nets with something that would fulfill you. But of course, you never could. And then there was a moment that Jesus got in your boat. And upon getting in your boat, here's what Jesus told you to do. Now fish again and see if you don't get filled up. And that was what I think of Peter's salvation experience. In that moment that Jesus got in his boat, and rather than fishing over and over again for something that never satisfied, he now fishes and he's filled with real life, and he has a revelation of who Jesus is, and of course immediately becomes a follower of Jesus Christ, which if you're watching this today, I'm assuming you're in the same place I am. You call yourself a follower of Jesus Christ. You may go by Christian, you may even call yourself a Baptist, Presbyterian, Lutheran, but at the end of the day, we follow Jesus Christ. And if you're anything like Peter, you have your good days and your bad days, and they look something like this. There was a time that Jesus was sitting around with his disciples, and he said, "Who do people say that I am?" And they had a myriad of answers for him. But in reality, what Jesus was asking is, "Who do you say that I am?" And upon looking at Peter, here's what Peter said. He said, "You are Son of God." And it was one of those things that he spoke first and thought later, but luckily he had this answer right. So maybe you've been like Peter, where you've had moments of such clarity of who God was, and your worship with him, you felt that you were very close with him. But then if you keep reading, you run into the next set of scriptures where Peter starts telling Jesus, "They'll never take you alive. They won't kill you." And of course, Jesus looks at him and says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." And if you've had those days with Peter, one moment you're feeling great, and the next moment you feel like Jesus gave you beat down. You feel lower than you possibly could imagine. But then you could keep going on, and maybe you're like Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus asked you to stay awake and pray, and all you can do is fall asleep. Maybe another time a soldier came in to grab Jesus, and you were the guy who cut off the ear of a listener. Because of your actions, you cut off the ability for someone else to hear. But may I encourage you with this. Peter stuck with Jesus long enough that by the time Acts 12 came, you see that King Herod is going through killing the leaders of the church. And he actually killed James, who is the brother of John, and he decides that it's time to kill Peter. He takes Peter, locks him up in between two soldiers, and upon locking him between these two soldiers, we find Peter dead asleep. We find this in Acts chapter 12, verse 6. How was Peter sleeping? That was because the man that he followed was sleeping during the storm. In Luke chapter 8, verse 22, when the storm was going crazy and the disciples thought they were dead, they went down to find Jesus where? Sleeping. Peter stuck around with Jesus long enough that he didn't have to act like Jesus. He didn't have to try to imitate Jesus. He literally was living like Jesus. And then here's the next exciting thing that I want to show you. We also see Peter bound between two guards. Bound between two guards. Why is a fisherman who is now a teacher bound between two sets of guards with 12 other guards standing around him? It's simply this: because the man that Jesus followed, or the man that Peter followed, was an escape artist, and his name's Jesus Christ. There was a time when a group of people tried to cast Jesus over a cliff, and they couldn't get a handle on him, and he slipped right through. There was another time where the people actually killed Jesus, put him in a grave, and that couldn't even hold him down. No matter where Jesus was at, you never could hold him down. And the moment you become a follower of Jesus Christ, eventually you will have the same characteristics of Jesus, and that's simply this: you won't be held down. Sickness may try to get you. Doubt may try to grab you. Shame might try to hold you back. But in reality, there's so much of Jesus in you that he won't keep you from those places, and you'll find yourself slipping away every time.